So now we are going to talk about the origins of data and how they are related to Darwin Core concepts. So Darwin Core is a data standard that is used in the GBIF network, and that will be presented and more in more detail in further modules. But just right now, we're going to link the origins of data and how they can be published through GBIF using the Darwin Core concept. So first of all, on this slide, you can see the Darwin Core standard and how it works, how the publishing process works in GBIF. So first of all, at the top of this slide, you can see the type of data you want to publish. So you can have some metadata only datasets. So in this case, you only share the information, the description of your dataset, but not really data. And then when you share actual data, you can have taxonomic data, such as the checklist or taxonomic reference fields that we already presented. Or you can also have some occurrence datasets. So occurrence, it's about all specimens or observations that you can have in your institution. So if you have some occurrence data, that is to say observations or specimens, or taxonomic data, such as checklist or red list, and the metadata that are describing your data, you can publish them into GBIF using several tools, but mainly the first one on the left of the second row, which is the Integrated Publishing Toolkit, or IPT. And once you have published your data using the IPT, your data will be available online on the GBIF data website that you can see at the bottom of this slide. So in order to be able to publish different data, different types of data, and with different origins, we use the Darwin Core standard with what we call cores and extensions. So the Darwin Core standard is comprised of a core and possible extensions that form like a star schema. So different cores can be used depending on the origin of the data. So as I was saying, you can use the occurrence core for natural history collection specimens and field simple observation, or the taxon core for taxonomical lists, such as checklist or web list. And finally, the event core is for sampling events, such as surveys, transects, quadrats, traps, and every protocol that you used in order to sample data on the field. And if you want to share more information about your data, you can use the extensions, which are used for giving more details about your data. So for example, here you have a list of a few extensions. There are a lot more on the IPT, but this is just to give you some examples. So the first of it is simple multimedia extensions for exchanging metadata about multimedia resources. So for example, links to images, video, and audio files that are linked to your data. So you can have some data that are from notebooks that you filled in on the field. And if you took pictures of the specimens that you observed or collected, you can put the URL of these pictures and link them to your specimen. If you want to give more details about the taxon description, you can use the taxon description extension to exchange simple text or paragraph-based taxon descriptions. Then you can also use measurement of facts to add information about biotic and abiotic variables. You also have other extensions such as trait descriptor or material sample if you have some DNA samples in your collection that you want to link to some specimens. You can use this extension to link them, and many more extensions that will be talked about in further modules and sessions. So you just have to take note that some cores can be used as extensions too, such as the occurrence core that can be used in addition to the event core. So we're just going to have a look at what is the occurrence core. So this is the main page of a dataset resources on the IPT. So you can see that once you have uploaded your source data, that is the data you want to share, you just have to select a core in the red box that appears on the slide. And once you have selected the occurrence core, you can map your field to the standard for occurrence data. So we will talk about this later and have some practical exercises on the IPT, but it's just to give you an idea of what happens once you have identified the origin of your data and once you want to share your data using the right tools and standards. So as I was saying, there are different cores in the standard. So if your data are more taxonomical data, such as a checklist or red list, you can use the taxon core to share them. So exactly as it was for the occurrence core, you go back to the IPT and you can select the Darwin core taxon core instead of the Darwin core occurrence core. And once you have selected this core, you have this kind of mapping page that appears. So the fields are not exactly the same at the occurrence core, and it's made for taxonomic data and not for occurrence data. And then in the last case, if you want to share some sampling event data, you can use the event core for this kind of data. So once again, we get to the main page of a resource on the IPT, and you can see on the red box here that you can choose the last core, that is Darwin core event, instead of occurrence or taxon core. So here you can see the mapping page for event core used for sampling data. And once we have mapped the data to the core of the standard, you can use the extensions if you have some more details or information to share. So where to find the extensions? So if you decide to install the IPT, which is the publishing software that is developed and maintained by the GBIF, you can, if you are an administrator of this IPT, you can go in the administration section, and you can see in the red box on the slide core types and extensions that you can select in order to add some core Darwin cores or extensions. So if you are not administrator of your IPT, you can ask the administrator to add some cores or extensions for you. So here you will have a page with a few examples of existing extensions. So as I was saying, you can see here different kinds of extensions such as Darwin core resource relationship, or an extension for adding information about DNA or alternative identifiers. So you really have to check the list of extensions, and it's probable that you will find an extension that already exists for your needs. So this is the end of this first presentation about the origins of data. So we will continue with some other presentation and software's demonstration. And I will thank you for your attention and see you soon in other videos.